ARB as
That's where I
well.
wanted to go. You're right where I wanted to go, Mr. Rubin. You've given us 40,000 documents. Are contained in that 40,000 documents within that 40,000 documents is every document that the ARB received from the State Department. So the State Department gave the ARB a bunch of documents. Are everything the ARB had contained in that 40,000?
I have not read all 40,000.
No, I'm not telling you. I don't expect you've read them.
I don't want to misstate that.
Have we received everything the ARB received?
Again,
simple
sir,
question.
I did not draft the ARB, and I have not read all 40,000 pages. I'm here to convey to the House, to the committee, what it is that we're working on. And the documents.
This is a simple question. This is the key question. The documents the ARB got from the State Department, are they in the 40,000 that we now have? Every single thing that the ARB got from the State Department, are they in the 40,000 documents we now have? No.
The document request.
You can say I don't know.
The document request was related more broadly to an overall search for documents from the State Department. Now, as far as the ARB investigation, it's important to also recognize that ARBs over time need to stand the independence, as you've cited, and that is for the security of our personnel.
There's two components to the subpoena. There's what I was just talking about. Does this committee now have everything that the State Department gave to the Accountability Review Board? That's question one. Question two is the notes, the records, the files, the interview notes, everything that the ARB compiled in their investigation, we want those too. Does this committee have those notes, records, and files that the 5-member ARB panel had? Do we have that information?
Again, I cannot tell you specifically every single document has been in there, but again, if the committee tells us that is in their priority sequencing, the number one thing,
we don't have to tell you that.
I'm happy to convey that back and have us move on that.
Mr. Rubin, are you familiar with the statute about the statute pertaining that created the ARB? It says this:
1986. Yeah.
Records pertaining to administrative proceedings under the ARB process shall be separated, shall, not may, shall be separated from all other records of the Department of State and shall be maintained. So here's the point. You should have a file already with everything nicely and neatly organized of all the documents that the State Department gave the ARB and all the notes, files, and records that the ARB compiled in their investigation, when they did the interviews, how many people they interviewed, did they interview them alone, did they do it in groups? You should have all that in a file. That should be the simplest thing in the world to hand over to us, and you haven't done it. And yet, everyone claims the ARB was independent. How can we test the claim when you won't give us what the statute requires? Separated, segregated file on what the ARB did, and you guys keep it.
Part of the core integrity of the ARB.
Do you have that file separated and segregated like the law, like the statute requires?
Sir, the core integrity of the ARB is reliant upon discretion and the ability of the people to be open.
These questions are so simple. Is there a segregated file like the ARB statute requires? Do you have that separated, segregated, ready to hand over to us at a long time ago, frankly, but do you have it separated and segregated?
I'd have to go and ask our experts about that.
This is amazing.
I'm the liaison.
You were invited to come here today to tell us about the documents. The statute says you're supposed to have them separated and segregated, ready to maintaining those, and you don't even know if you have them and can't give them to us?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I'm going to get our experts.
You're saying you don't know. I got
help
that
convey
answer.
That.
I
want to get you the proper information.
One last thing, Mr. Chairman. In the article you wrote 1 month after 4 Americans were tragically killed, one of them a friend of yours and a great ambassador. In the article you wrote that Mr. Roscom cited earlier, you talked about not rushing to judgment, and you specifically said we should wait to get all the facts out. Direct quote from your guest blogger column. And here's the irony. Wait to get all the facts. You said wait to get all the facts, and now you're the guy who can give us the facts. You're the guy who should have the ARB file separate, segregated, ready to hand over, and you guys won't do it. After you said that a month after this tragedy, and now this should be ready to give over to us, and the State Department saying, well, keep prioritizing. We got top people on it. Keep getting in line. We're working with you. We promise we'll work with you. We're going to get to it someday, sometime, somehow. It's not going to fly, Mr.
Sir, we've been proactive with the committee. We have provided briefings that the committee didn't request, and we're always open to.
The subpoena was a year and a half ago. I don't know how you can say you've been proactive and helpful when you won't even comply with the statute and give us what the law requires you to give us and have it segregated and separated for us. And, oh, by the way, claim independence in the process. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I thank the gentleman from Ohio. Mr. Rubin and Mr. Higgins, I think both of you have something in common with every member of the committee, which is a deep and abiding respect for the four people who gave their lives for this country. So I think that you share our desire to do what the House instructed us to do. And you'll note the Department of Justice is not at the table. You made reference, Mr. Rubin, to the Department of Justice. Ms. Sanchez made reference to the Department of Justice, and I asked her to yield time so I could clarify that, and she's well within her rights not to do so. The Department of Justice did write us a letter, and we met with them. And we addressed the concerns that they had about protecting the integrity of their prosecution, which I can assure you, given my former line of work, I want them to be wildly successful with their prosecution. So I would never do anything to jeopardize that. We met, we discussed it, we worked out the issues. They're not at the table. That's why they're not at the table. I don't enjoy these hearings. I'd rather have a hearing about substance, not about process. I don't want another hearing like this. But when my colleagues are complaining about the pace, and I've got colleagues on this side, which I never thought I would ever hear in my life, that I am too polite. I never thought I would hear that. I hope my three sisters are watching. We're going to have to ratchet it up. And if the letters don't work, then we're going to have to resort to a more formal legal process. Because I want this concluded. And I don't think any of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have had an opportunity to highlight this point yet, but I'm sure that they would agree with me. There's not been a single leak of anything that either of you have provided us. There's not been a single selective release of information. Not one. So the people on this committee take their responsibility seriously. This is not a political exercise for us. Most of the people who asked me about Benghazi, I could not tell you their political ideation, if they have one. They just want to know what happened. And I intend to tell them, and I intend to tell them sooner rather than later. So the letters haven't worked, and the Southern politeness has not worked. We're going to ratchet it up, because I need access to the documents and the witnesses, and we need to be able to conclude our work.